Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Dr. Professor Mom. I am so excited to be talking to you today. I want you guys to pay attention to my shirt. My niece got me this for my birthday, Dr. Professor Mom. I've decided that I'm going to start launching merchandise, so I'm super excited about that. But my niece kind of kicked it off for me, so I want you to pay attention to my shirt today. Well, anyway, today is a it'll be a very good conversation today. As many of you know, or some of you may not know, May is Maternal Mental Health Month, and it's really just a month that focuses on the emotional wellness and physical wellness of moms. So, moms, whether they're pregnant, postpartum, whatever the case may be, it's just a month that really focuses on mental health. When I was um, pregnant with my son, I didn't really think about just maternal mental health. I think most people are just terrified of getting postpartum depression, that they don't think about the other parts of postpartum that affect you. So, before my son, I never heard of things like postpartum rage or postpartum anxiety. You really just think of these very extreme cases of postpartum depression and not really thinking about it that it's not a one size fit all. It's really a spectrum, right? I think the postpartum period is a spectrum, and you have some people who they don't have many struggles, or they may struggle for the so-called fourth trimester, right? After you the 3 months after you have your child. And it's just, it can come at any point in time. To me, really, when I think about my postpartum journey, I would really say it was really a 2-year process. When I had my son, my mom was there, my husband was with me. I didn't really feel, I remember getting something called baby blues, which happens where your hormones are kind of settling. We were like talking about the real estate market, and I started crying, and I was like, why am I crying? Like, what is going on? And I texted my doula, and she was like, oh, it's just the baby blues, it'll settle in like 2 weeks. And it really did. And I had my son, like I told you, my husband was there, and then I returned to work. And that was a different balance, right? Trying to balance. I felt like I was just constantly underwater trying to like get to the surface, right? Because I was trying to balance my job, which was very demanding, returning from maternity leave, my students really needing me, really needing a lot of assistance because I had been away for, 12 weeks. And then when I came home, I had this baby that I had to take care of. My mom would keep him during the day, but when I get home, she's like, okay, here's your child, right? Like, I'm going outside, right? I'm taking a break. And so it was like, oh my gosh, like, I couldn't do my job the way I had did my job for so long. And I've talked about this in other conversations, but it was really difficult in those. I returned to work in the summer. It was really difficult in those first 3 months. Um, well, I would say first 6 months, to really accept that I could no longer do the job the way I had did it in the past. And that was really go, 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 right? You work all day, you get home, you work out, eat, and then you're back to working. And you get ahead in a lot of ways doing that. But when you have a child, you get home and the second job starts, right? Because now you have to take, I remember I advise I think I said this in blog posts, I've said this in other videos. If you have automatic notifications for email as a professor, you should turn that off right now, because it drives you crazy, because you're used to, in the middle of you can be anywhere, you get an email, you're responding, right? The plane is taking off and you're responding to an email, right? And like, oh, do I have enough service to get this email through? So we're so used to responding as soon as we get an email. And when you have a kid, and it's like you're trying to change the diaper, play with the child, you cannot respond to emails. And that would drive me crazy. And so that first 6 months, I was really struggling um, to balance it all, and really feeling like I was starting to feel like I was suffocating. Like no matter what I was doing, I wasn't able to stay ahead the way I had been in the past. And it was very difficult to let the old Ariel go. And that's the best way to put it. Like, and I was, the more it seemed like every few months I was starting to feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm not myself. Like nothing is the same. That part I had not planned for, and I felt like no one had told me that, right? The loss of identity, the feeling like when you look in the mirror you don't know who this person is, like saying goodbye to your old life, that is very hard. Like you get invited to a seminar to give a presentation at a different institution, national lab, and you're used to, yes, I can go, no problem. And now you're like, oh, for me, my husband, again, is in the military. I don't have any family that lives by me. So I have, built a support system here in Columbus. But before you say yes, you have to check, make sure there's someone to get your kid to daycare, to watch after your child, things of that nature. I always say there's a blessing that I met Miss Lisa, which when Monsa first started going to daycare, he went to Miss Lisa's daycare here in Columbus, and I love. Wish she could have stayed 100%, because it was a wonderful in-home daycare. But God put her in my life for a reason, because she has been like an aunt for me. Like she'll watch Monta for me. But when you get to the seminar, you're like, I can't stay 3 days like I used to, right? I'm in and I'm out, right? I'm leaving on the first flight in the morning. I'm meeting with people. I'm giving my presentation, and that night I'm headed back to Columbus, which was so different than before. You're used to using that as a network opportunity. But for me, I wasn't able to do that, especially when you're in the beginning, when you're pumping and all of those things. So that was real. I just felt like I was not myself anymore. I was like this different person that I didn't recognize. And I don't think that is like really, I don't think that's really talked about enough, right? That loss of identity and how difficult that is to accept in the beginning. And so, my mom was there. I started to feel very, I think, and I want to say this, and I don't want to say this because I think we do have, some of us have, really good support systems. But I think people are very much focused on the baby. And no one, people think like you have this child and you're just supposed to return to normal. Like everything's supposed to be okay. Like nothing should be wrong with you. You have help. I had my mom, I had help. I'm just supposed to be okay. And I even felt that way. And so I think for like the first year of my son's life, I was afraid to express that I was not feeling emotionally well, that I felt like my mental health was struggling a little bit, because I was struggling with losing myself and not knowing who I was. And not just not knowing in the operation space, but like my hair is falling out. Anyone who knows me knows I have a lot of hair. My hair was literally falling out of my head. Like my edges, like from here to here, like this short, right? My hair is coming out. Um, as I've expressed in other videos, I'm having a very difficult time losing weight. I'm 80 pounds heavier. By this time, I'm holding on to 50 extra pounds, so I don't physically look the same. I'm not operating in my career the same. I'm not able to show up in my friendships the same. I'm not able to go out and explore the way I'm doing my job is different, and my hair is falling out of my head. And nothing is the same. Literally nothing is what it was before I had my son, and I'm really struggling. But you're afraid to express that, and I think I was afraid to express that because I did have my mom there with me for that first year, and I did have a lot of help. And so you feel bad because you know that there are women who have no help and no assistance. My husband was coming back every other weekend, things of that nature. And my husband was a very hands-on father, so now I'm really feeling bad, right? Because I'm like, I was raised by a single mom that really, did a lot of things on her own. So you're also feeling like if I express, like I think I said in a previous video, my idea of a good mom was a mom that did not ask for help. And so I'm terrified to ask for help because I don't want people to think I'm a bad mom. I'm afraid to say, hey, I might, need a little bit of a break because, again, it's like, well, this is my kid that I chose to have. So I shouldn't be expecting anybody to assist me. And now I'm really afraid. I don't really feel like I'm depressed. I have a lot of anxiety, but I don't really feel like I'm depressed. So I'm also like not really sure what my emotional state is. I sought after a therapist that specialized in postpartum, but at the end of the day, after, like, I talk a lot at my job, I'm a professor, and I just would be so exhausted that I didn't even really feel like I was giving the therapy 100%. So I just feel like in every aspect of my life, I'm failing at something. And I just was drowning. And I remember going, my grandparents got sick, my mom left. So immediate I felt like one week my mom was here and the next week my mom was there. I was scrambling to find a daycare for my son. I found this amazing in-home daycare. Like I said, Miss Lisa, and godsend for sure. She took my son in like he was her, and her husband took my son in like he was their own, like he was their grandchild. And so now I'm waking up. The daycare that Monsa went to was about in the morning. It was about 15 minutes from our house. But on the way back, I had to go past my house through downtown to Ohio State. So I would be sitting in traffic for like an hour. And then on the way back, I would be sitting in traffic for another hour and a half to pick him up. And then another 30 minutes to get back home. So I was spending about three and a half hours of my day sitting in traffic. And so I was waking up. I wasn't sleeping well. I had really bad postpartum anxiety. I did not sleep well at all. So I was averaging, from my mom left like March, I was averaging about 3, 4 hours of sleep a night. I remember a student was like, how do you email at like 2:33 in the morning? It's like, because I'm up at 2:33 in the morning. And so I was waking up at 5 a.m., taking him to daycare, getting to work, working a full day, because I knew like when I got home, now my mom is gone, so I don't have any help when I get home. So I knew when I got home, I had no assistance. So at work, every minute of my day was accounted for. I was working my butt off. And then I'm sitting in traffic. I get home, getting Munson ready, playing with him, we do our little lessons every night, and then getting him in the bed. I remember getting him in the bed. I would be just like extremely exhausted. Like I need to I could pass out right now. Sometimes I would fall asleep on the couch because I would just be so tired of just I would be beat. And I was doing that every day all summer. I remember like the weekends, I was just like, if I could just get just a small break, like to just rest my mind, I would be very exhausted. And the summer is rough because my husband's in the military. They're doing a lot of exercises in the summer, so he's not really able to come the way he normally comes, and I'm not really getting breaks. And I'm feeling tired. Like this summer, I'm feeling very exhausted, and I feel like if my mental health was sitting at a 7, my mental health is now at a 3. So I'm really feeling, and I'm feeling enraged. That's the best way I can describe it. Is that I had extreme postpartum rage because I was just tired all the time. I really wasn't getting any type of break, any type of just time to just sit and relax and just be with my thoughts and be with myself. So I'm in looking back on it, I had 2 wonderful neighbors who, again, had offered me so much help, so much assistance. And like I said, my thought, which is crazy, my thought of a good mom was a mom that just really didn't ask for help. And I think you grow up as Black women, you grow up seeing women just doing everything. Women working hard, women taking care of their kids. You never hear them complain. You never hear them say, I'm exhausted today, I'm tired, I need a break, you guys. I'm not cooking today. We're eating McDonald's today, right? We're eating Chick-fil-A today. I never saw that growing up. So my idea was like, if you are complaining, then you're weak and you can't handle it. And so, my idea of a strong, good mom was a mom that never complained and a mom that put everybody before herself. And that's exactly what I was doing. When I was at work, my students were before me. If a colleague needs something, really quickly, even though it's going to take me, 3 hours out of my day to do it, I'm doing that. I get home, my son is before me. So literally everybody in the world was before me, right? I had placed everybody's priorities over my priorities. I had placed everyone's mental and emotional health above my own emotional and mental health. So you're really just you're not yourself, right? You have zero identity at this point because everyone else's needs are coming before your needs. And then the crazy part of that is you feel like you can't express that. Like you feel like if you say anything, then people are going to think you're weak or you're complaining. And I think another thing that academics struggle with, and this is before motherhood, right? Is that people look at our lives and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so accomplished. You have a PhD in engineering, you've traveled the world, you win all these awards, you have all these accolades. Like there's nothing wrong in your life. There's no issue in your life, right? Like you have no problems. And so you feel foolish, even expressing that you are having problems because so many people make you feel bad. And not necessarily like they're intentionally doing it, but they'll say things like, well, what do you have to complain about? Or, oh my gosh, like your life is so charming. Like you have these memes, right? And so you don't feel comfortable expressing anything. So all of your emotions are just bottled up inside, right? They're just sitting inside of you. And that's where the rage is coming from. Now I know that that's really where the rage is coming from because you feel like you're in a pressure cooker, right? Like you can't express anything. Like you can't express to your students, like, hey, if you guys don't schedule, you're waiting to the last minute to schedule time with me, you're changing meetings at the last minute, right? You're coming to my office without any email, without any warning, and asking for my help with something. If I express that to you, then I have to worry about what are you going to say on student evaluation forms, right? What are you going to say when you give feedback about me, right? Oh, she's unavailable when I need help. You're not going to give the backstory of how I have office hours and I've asked you to email me. So you feel like you can't really express to anybody that you are struggling and that you need a little bit more consideration and compassion, right? That you need some more grace from them because you feel like, again, you're complaining and you watched all these women before you do these things, and what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you get this together? Like, why do you need all of this assistance? And I think for me too, I am used to just like handling my business. And then this is a lot, but this is starting to feel like a lot, right? And I remember people are offering you help, but again, there's mom guilt. Well, if I'm going to miss him, like what if something happens to him? Like he's always with me. And then you feel guilty that maybe you can't handle your kid. And are people looking at you and thinking, oh, she's not cut out to be a mom, like it's especially I think for career driven women, because you feel like people are already kind of judging your ability to balance it all. And not even, I take that back, not balance it all, but are you going to is your career before everybody, right? Even your kid. And so you feel like really like you just cannot express yourself. Like you just like again, like everything's bottled up. And so you have a lot of rage. I feel like I should have went to one of those what do they call them, where you rage rooms where you just hit all this stuff. I probably should have had a weekly appointment in a rage room. Now that I think about it, because and the rage is really coming from feeling like you just cannot express yourself. And I've talked about the physical, how I was feeling physically and I wasn't feeling well. And again, I'm holding on. In my past videos, I've talked about that, this weight that I can't gain. So again, I'm just feeling like in every area of my life that before my son had normalcy, there is no normalcy at this point, and I'm not feeling, I'm not mentally, I'm struggling, right? And again, being very afraid to express that I'm struggling to people, because there's this fear of judgment and this fear of appealing weak. um and now I'm sitting in this pressure cooker and no one's coming to take the lid off for me, so I'm feeling very lonely and I'm feeling very isolated. And, I remember I've talked about, my 2024 year and how my mom was sick. So I felt like by the end of 2024, and then you're feeling like, is this really postpartum? Like, my son is over a year old at this point, right? Right. Like, I'm really feeling like, is it just something wrong with me, right? Are other women also in this two kind of, this is almost 2 years into it, right? So, and now I realize that it is this 2 year period that people really struggle in. And not saying that if you struggle without 2 years there's something wrong. I'm just saying, I know from speaking to other, especially other female faculty members who have kids, that this is common, and that this 2 year struggle is normal, in a lot of ways, and it's okay to not feel okay, actually, and it's okay to express that to people, that you don't feel okay. And that you're gonna need a little bit more support. Looking back on it, again, I had these wonderful neighbors who I definitely use now, but back then I was afraid to ask for help, because they're not my family in a sense. And again, you could choose family as well, and I don't want to be judged. I have extreme mom guilt, and so I'm just really honestly, I'm living every day almost as a shell of myself. That's the best way I can put it, is that I'm waking up every day. I'm basically functioning with depression and anxiety. And I'm waking up every day and I'm just kind of going through the motions. I'm not really participating. I'm not really going anywhere. I'm not getting any type of self care outside, of maybe once or twice getting a massage. I have to take off from work to get a massage. So that's not, any self care I do that I was doing at this point. I would have to leave work. Now I get sitters and again use my neighbors. But back then, that Ariel that wouldn't ask for help was really just going through. I was really just a shell of myself, and I felt like I was standing outside of my body watching myself. I was robotic for sure, and I didn't feel like I could express myself in any way. So I had a lot of rage. And when you have a lot of rage, you take that out on people. They may do something minor. And then all of a sudden for you, it's huge, because you're already feeling like no one cares about you. You're already feeling like, you're on the back burner of everyone, and everyone, you're putting everybody's needs and wants before your own, but no one's doing that for you. So you really feel, like you're very isolated and you're very much by yourself. And so you know, you you act out. It could be something really small that someone does to you and it feels very big, because again, you feel like no one cares about you and no one loves you, right? And so you can take something that's really small that's happening, and you can make that really big. And people don't know where that's coming from. And I think because we do not talk about maternal mental health enough, and we do not talk about postpartum enough, and the care that the mom needs, and not necessarily always the child, that people don't recognize that you are really having symptoms of postpartum. Everyone just thinks you're this raging mean person that is irritable and is always complaining about something. No one really sees the struggles that you're having, because we haven't taught people to see that. We've said a woman has a baby and then everything's about the baby. The mom is okay. We don't tell people about this hormone imbalance that's going on for sometimes over 2 years for people. We're not talking about the loss of identity that the woman is experiencing at this point, right? The guilt that they're experiencing, right? We're not talking about all of these struggles enough. And so the people around you just really don't understand it. And the truth is, sometimes even the moms around you don't understand it. I think the older generation of moms can be very judgmental. They can be very judgmental. They can make you feel extremely bad about how you're feeling. And I think the only people around me who really could see that there was a struggle, I would say, were my two best friends. Well, three best friends, but two for sure, because they had kids and they were single moms. And so they truly, they could recognize, even though I wasn't saying anything, they recognized that something was off. In that, and they would always encourage me and, always say, I understand, I'm here for you. They would come and see me, so those people, you really, I think the mom and the motherhood community is how can be so powerful, right? Because I think because there is this better push to understand mental health and make accommodations, that we can talk about it more freely, than we used to. But again, I think as a society, there just hasn't been a lot of understanding and teaching in postpartum. Even with my brother, who has a set of twins that are they're younger than my son, I will say to him, like, hey, postpartum is tough. Hey, you need to be, you need to be there. You need to be more supportive. Like, it's tough. You need to really understand how rough it can be in those first 2 years of your child's life. And I think, that's what we need to do. We need to educate the men around us, the women around us, the younger generation, that when they're experiencing these symptoms, that it's not like something's wrong with them, right? That these things are normal to feel, and it's okay to express that. And giving women an outlet, is really why I started Dr. Professor Mom, because there are things that are unique to academics, right? As far as parenthood is concerned, but I think there are a lot of similarities no matter what, right? That and postpartum care for the mom is just something that we need to do a lot better of a job at. We need to do better at supporting moms, right? And not just supporting moms with a child, but really supporting the mom, right? And focusing on the mom and the care for the mom. Because in reality, people expect you to have a child and go back to who you used to be, just like that. And I'm telling you right now, I expected that, and I was not who I used to be. And it took me about 18 months to accept that. It took me 18 months to accept that I could not do my job like I had did my job before. And that was okay too, right? And that I could be very much successful in the new normal, right? The new Ariel, and letting go of the old area. Ariel took about 18 months. It really took me 18 months to feel identity again. Like accept my new identity, but also blend. I don't think it's, and I said the old Ariel, I don't think it's necessarily letting go of who you were, but letting go of the way you functioned before. Because I'm still Ariel, right? I'm still very ambitious. I'm still very career driven. I'm still very, I love really hard. I'm still myself, but there's a new way in which I must operate as myself. And I think that's the part that the operation piece, the logistics piece, is hard to accept. And I think for the people around us, just asking, hey, are you okay? And when we're saying, oh, we don't need help, I don't need help, or just being like, no, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna be there, right? Just really pushing us to talk about our feelings and giving us a safe space to talk about those feelings without judgment, giving us a space to scream if we want to scream, or say, hey, I'm not feeling well today, or just giving us a safe, loving, and kind space. I think women need that in postpartum, and knowing that postpartum is not the 3 months after you have a child. Postpartum can be 2+ years after you have a child, right? It just really, it's an individual journey. It's an individual path. And you may have people that, okay, after those 3 months, 2 months, they're fine, right? They're okay. And then you might have people that need 3 years, and that's okay too. So not judging, like giving people this safe, loving, and kind and warm environment to express themselves. And when they do, being there, right? My son has this book called The Rabbit Listened, and it talks about it's a book about, long story short, a rabbit they build something with blocks and it gets destroyed, and everybody's coming to the rabbit and basically saying, oh, let's scream about it, let's yell about it, let's go knock someone else's down, blocks down. And the rabbit is like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. or the little girl is saying, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. And then the rabbit comes, and the rabbit just sits beside the little girl and lets the little girl express her emotion. The rabbit literally just listens. And I think that is, I love that book because it of course it can be compared to a lot of different things, but I think when I think about postpartum, is really just the space to express yourself, and then have a soundboard where someone says, "Hey, Ariel, it's okay if your neighbor, you're not a bad mom if your neighbor watches Monto while you go take a run, go work out, go get, your nails did, go get your hair did, go, like all of those things. That doesn't make you a bad mom if you send your child to their grandparents' house for a week. That doesn't make you a bad mom. That doesn't make you this terrible person. Just having that space, right? That's why I love the book The Rabbit Listen, because the rabbit really just sits there and listens. He doesn't tell the person what to do, how to feel. It's wrong to feel this way. It's really just about listening and offering that support system to postpartum moms. And I think for me, as an academic, when I think about it for academia, having moms that are professors really expressing. When I remember talking to a professor in my department who has a mom, and I was like, man, I'm just really feeling exhausted. She's like, that's okay. That's okay. If you ever need me to watch Monta for you, her saying, and she's very successful. So, her saying, hey, she was the one that said to me, you need to cut that automatic notification off for email. It's going to drive you crazy. She literally said that to me. Like, let me give you some tips. Like, what are you doing? Like, hey, you need to tell your group. If you cancel a meeting with me, I'm not guaranteed to work around my entire schedule to meet with you. Setting some boundaries with your research group and with your students, and having some expectations that they're going to show you kindness and compassion the same way you're going to show them kindness and compassion. And so, she was really helpful to me about setting boundaries and telling me that doesn't make you a bad academic advisor. If students complain about that, then that's on them, right? You should have boundaries. I think she was really helpful, her and her husband. If my son if he's sick and I have to pick him up and I have to teach, they both are very good about sitting with him in my office while I teach, right? So again, we also as a community should create support systems so that new parents and any type of parent really feels supported, right? So now I'm like, hey, I never thought about that. If one of my colleagues' kid is sick, they can sit in my office. I can walk them around campus. This is a huge campus. We can go get some ice cream. Like, again, being there for our peers and being there for our colleagues, because we know that can be a very difficult job to do um, with kids. And I'll tell you one thing for me, when it was time to really get in therapy and really unpack things, I feel like my postpartum depression and rage and anxiety triggered a lot of things that I had been suppressing for so long, right? And a colleague and I talked about this, right? That if you have a PhD, you're a professor, I can just take a stab and say that you have been on this trajectory probably since you were like in middle school, right? You have been head down in the books, getting your work done, tunnel vision for a very long time. And I know for women of color and minorities in STEM, you face a lot of issues along the way: racist attacks, sexism, so many things. And every time one of those things happen, it kind of chips away at you a little bit, but you don't have the time to unpack it because you have to keep going, right? You got to get this done. You don't have time to complain. You don't have time to worry about someone else's issue, but it is having an effect on you. And then you have these traumatic events, and now you got to unpack those things because they're working on now it's all coming to a head, right? All the years of crap that you put up with from people is coming to, because you're tired and you feel like, again, you're in a pressure cooker, and now you're realizing for a lot of your life you haven't been able to express a lot of things that's been happening to you, and so you have a lot of rage inside of you. Something that I started was hypnotherapy to really tap into events that had happened, traumatic events that had happened in my life, and were now kind of coming to a head that I needed to unpack. And it has done wonders for me. And I'll talk about that in a different blog. But hypnotherapy has worked a lot of wonders. And I will tell you, do not start hypnotherapy unless you are really ready to unpack these things, because it is very triggering in itself, and it brings up a lot of suppressed emotions, and you need to be in a space where you're ready to tackle those things. And I would not say jump into hypnotherapy if you're not ready to do that. But just as I don't want to beat a dead horse, but May is Maternal Mental Health Month. And what I can tell you is, do for all my moms, take care of yourself, right? You don't have to put everybody's needs before yours, right? You matter. Your who you are, your identity, all of those things matter, right? If you don't have a support system, build you one. I'm in Columbus. I have no family here, and I worked my butt off to build a support system. But just don't have people, rely on them. When someone says, I will help you, I will do this for you, take them up on that. If you can afford it, don't be afraid to hire a sitter, right? To give yourself a break. Again, asking for help and needing a break doesn't make you a bad mom. And as moms, we really need to build those communities for each other, right? And one thing I love about Columbus is no matter what neighborhood you live in, there is a moms group, and those mom groups can be very helpful, because again, it's a community of people who are really dealing with the same things that you're dealing with, and that's okay, right? And for the people that are supporting moms, know that it's a tough space to be in. And sometimes, we're gonna say things that you're like, dang, that's mean, or that hurts. But just know that we are having some struggles. And it's okay for you to say, hey, I see that you're not acting like yourself, or I see that there's some struggles. What do you need from me? How can I help you? And really mean that. When you say that, mean that. And be there for moms, and be there. And if whether that mom is your sister, it's your niece, it's your daughter, it's your child, be there for them, right? And that's not just the women around them, that's the men around them too. Support them, love them, let them know that they are not alone, and you are in this fight, and you are in this struggle with them, and you're willing to be in the trenches with them, and you're willing to be a listening ear, right? You're willing to just listen, and support. And so again, thank you so much for listening to Dr. Professor Mom. Please subscribe to my channel. We're on Apple Podcasts. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.